Hello and welcome everyone. The stream will be starting very soon.
Hello and welcome everybody. Welcome to tonight's live stream where we already got a pretty live chat going. If we scroll back through this bad boy, we can say hello to G Croco and Ayush and someone whose name unfortunately I can't read because I do not speak that particular language or read it for that matter. But hello. And NKTP, hello and welcome. Just to get to your questions, first of all, I hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. We are kicking off another week of streaming here on the old intertubes by jumping into a Sublime Text live stream right here on the YouTube, where you can ask any questions you like about Sublime Text, and if I have an answer, I will provide you one, and possibly the community as well, or up in the chat or over in the chat. Will have advice for you as well. I also stream on Twitch on Wednesdays and Fridays, where we work on slightly different projects, but if you have questions about Sublime Text, you can ask them in the chat. So there's really not a lot of difference there, except this one is on YouTube and the other ones are on Twitch. But yes, there's talk going back and forth in the channel about Vim mode and Vim navigations. The vintage package ships directly with Sublime Text. If you look in your user preferences, the ignored packages setting has vintage in it. You can remove it from there to enable it, or just use package controls enable package command. If you want to do something Vim related in Sublime, I would probably recommend the Neo Vintages package instead, which will also provide Vim support, but it is a little bit more complete, if you will. The vintage package that ships with Sublime, I don't think has been updated in a little while, whereas Neo Vintages is a more full-featured Vim mode. We can actually jump into that in just one moment. Not that it's a package that I use. I have used. I'll post this link directly in the chat right now, as a matter of fact. This one right here. Hello, Ayush. Welcome. I have been a user of Vim and VI in general for the better part of 2 decades, but while I'm inside of Sublime, I like to keep things in the Sublime way of working. There was one other question that came up back here, which was, I'm new to Sublime, have some tips and Dev Essentials plugins to install, and how can I navigate faster in the text? That is a pretty good question, and let's go ahead and jump directly into the desktop and get things rolling. First of all, this is the package control package for Neo Vintages. As you can see, it was last modified 3 months ago. You can do a fair bit with it. I've never personally used it myself, but I do know from hanging around in the community for a long while now, because this package is, I've pretty much been in the Sublime Text community for the entire time that this package has been on package control. It's always highly recommended by people that use or want to use Vim bindings inside of their copy of Sublime Text. So I would recommend that as well. And just to go into, if you were to use preferences, settings, default settings on the left, your settings on the right. If you look for ignored packages, man, there's more of those now than there were before. Vintage is the package that ships with Sublime Text. You can just remove that. If you use package control, chances are good this setting already exists over here in your right-hand side, and you can just remove it from there and enable it. Be very careful that you know how Vim works, because that will change some key bindings in a way that may confuse you. But if that's the case and you ever want to put it back, package control has a disable package command that will list all of the packages that aren't currently disabled. You can pick one. You can also choose to enable a package, and it'll show you just those packages. Both of those commands will directly modify this ignored packages setting for you, which I know you can only kind of see here because of the chat is over here. But there was a question about navigating around more inside of Sublime Text and potential packages to install. My usual advice for something like that would be to play with Sublime for a little bit first and get used to what it can do out of the box, and then go looking for packages that add the functionality that you're missing. I would not really recommend just trying to go to find a web page or a blog entry or a YouTube video that is the 10 packages you must install to be good, because those sorts of things are usually highly subjective, and they may or may not relate to what you're actually trying to do yourself with your code. That said, package control, must have package, I would say. That's going to make installing packages a lot easier, and it's very easy to install because there'll be an item in the tools menu. It hides itself when you already have it installed, so you can't see it here. If there was another package that I think everybody should probably install, it would probably be package dev, which is this one. It says tools to ease the creation of snippets, syntax, definitions, etc. for Sublime Text, and the name makes it seem like it's for developing packages. However, if you use Sublime for any appreciable length of time, then you might know that if you were to use browse packages from the command palette, you end up with a file browser into the packages folder. You may see any number of things here depending on what you have installed. One thing you'll always see is a folder named user, which has all of your customizations for Sublime Text, all of your key bindings, all of your settings, all of the settings for all of your packages, custom build systems that you've created, if you've augmented the command palette, if you've augmented the menu. This is just a package. So everybody that uses Sublime Text is a package developer, whether they know that they are or not. And this particular package, package dev, of all of the features that it provides a lot of syntax highlighting benefits for you, which will make things a lot nicer in the general case. For example, if we look at my default user Linux keys, we can see some nice syntax highlighting in here for various things. The syntax that would normally be used for this is this one, where most everything is in this particular color scheme green. You can see why that would be a very handy thing for you to have. Can I set the distraction-free mode not fully screen? I don't think so. I think distraction-free mode by default is full screen, just to make sure that you have no distractions. That is distinct from full screen, which is this, only in that there are specific settings. If you look into preferences, settings, distraction-free. If you set Sublime Text to be full screen, it'll be full screen, but it'll use all of the settings that you would normally use. If you set it to distraction free, it's still full screen, but there are different settings that apply. These are the defaults, and these are the ones that I have set, which is basically a duplicate of these ones, but I don't want word wrap to always be on. I only want it to be on sometimes. I don't want draw centered. I do want line numbers, etc. But yeah, I'm pretty sure distraction-free mode can only be full screen on one particular monitor anyway. If you're new to Sublime and you're looking into setting things up, then with the spirit of full disclosure that I am the author of this particular package, I would also recommend the package Override Audit, which is by me, and we just pushed out a release just a week ago, pretty much. This is sort of a package that will, if nothing else, future-proof you for problems that you might have down the line. There are a lot of people, for example, that did some things with their copies of Sublime Text 3 either accidentally or specifically on purpose, which when they upgraded to Sublime Text 4 caused them problems because of changes that were made. Some of the changes, not necessarily ill-advised that these people made, just it's very easy to override resources and modify how things work in Sublime in a way where it's just going to keep doing it forever, and it could potentially mask problems down the line. And I created this package specifically to make those sorts of problems easier to spot and easier to diagnose and easier to fix. So all else being equal, if you just install it, then nothing really happens. until you need it, and then it'll warn you that there's potentially a problem. So that's kind of cool. And there's some videos on the channel related to this as well. And as a matter of fact, this is something that we're gonna try to play with a little bit today, pending questions that anybody else might have in the chat going on here. We did a release just on the 12th, which was 6 days ago, and as we say, Keith Hall, you may recognize him from the Sublime Text Discord, the Sublime Text forum, or he's a very frequent contributor to the syntaxes that ship directly with Sublime Text. He provided a little bug fix for us here. There's been a few things that have been on the back burner in the package that I would like to start rolling out, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have to re-implement some of it because it's just been so long. So we're going to see how this goes. This is going to be like an exploratory mission. But just to give you a sense for what this package can actually do, it adds items up here into the tools menu and also into the command palette with the syntax of override audit and then things. Now the important part of this, I think, for everybody, is that it's very easy and possible to create an override in a package, possibly in a way that you didn't intend to, and those will stay around forever. And if we were to look at, for example, an override report like this, this is showing me that for the default package that ships with Sublime Text, I have a couple of modifications to the contents of that package. And also, I apparently have a test file here, which we can delete, just like this. And then we can refresh that, and that will go away. Also, I have a modification or an addition to the HTML package. This question mark says that this isn't something that's usually in this, so it's a file that has been added. And then there are a couple of other packages that have changes in them as well. So for example, inside of the default package that ships with Sublime Text, there's this file called paste from history. And if we wanted to, we could edit it. And what this actually is the functionality for being able to paste things from the clipboard in the history of things that you have copied and pasted previously. When you do it, you'll see something slightly different because I've modified mine to display things in a quick panel instead of just in a pop-up menu, so I can see a little bit more context. I get to see like 2 or 3 lines of context here. Now, because I've created this file with, well, let's maybe not do that, with this particular set of changes with this name, this file will always be used as if it comes from this package, no matter what, forever, for the history of Sublime until I delete this file. So what happens if it turns out that there's a bug somewhere in this code, not in my part, but in the part that ships with Sublime, and in future version of Sublime Text modifies this file? Well, they would ship a new version of Sublime Text. It would have a new version of the package. It would have a new version of this file. But because I created this version, Sublime will just use this one and only this one. And that's going to mask me from seeing bug fixes or enhancements that have been made. And in some cases, particularly with some key bindings, that can be disastrous because Sublime Text 4 it's a lot more flexible in where you can bind keys now, and as a result, some actions that people took in their Sublime Text 3 days caused them problems. So if you were to have this package installed, then most of the time nothing happens. If there was a situation where this file was modified by the authors of Sublime Text, the very first time you start Sublime after the update has happened, a report like this would pop up and tell you, this file has been changed by you and by the authors of Sublime Text, and their version of the file is newer. There may be an issue here. And we provide the opportunity to edit the file, as you just saw. We can do a diff and see exactly what was changed. So in this case, I can see the changes that were made. These are exactly the things that I might want to. And then I could choose to freshen this, for example. There's more about this in the thing, but this is what I would consider sort of missing functionality in Sublime Text. And if you have now or ever installed the package resource viewer package, then I would highly recommend that you install Override Audit as well, because it is monumentally easy to really screw stuff up with Package Resource Viewer. It's got a couple of commands that are disastrous, shall we say, in the potential destruction that they can cause with dropping files like this in a place that you don't expect. Related to other packages that you might want, again, that would depend on the sort of development work that you're doing. And I will say that at the very least, if you have ever used editors like Visual Studio Code or IntelliJ or things like that, you may be used to perhaps more in-depth code knowledge and intelligence out of the editor than Sublime can provide out of the box. For that, I would recommend the LSP package, which again isn't something that I personally use. It is something that I will be creating videos on in the future. You install the LSP package, and then you need to install one of the helper packages for the language that you are using. So for example, if you're working with, say, Python, there will be a convenience package for the Python language server. So that might be something that'll give you things like linting in the code to tell you when you've done something that is not correct, or showing you where symbols are defined, or signature pop-ups, method documentation, that kind of stuff. The LSP system is actually something that was created by Microsoft for Visual Studio Code. This package is a Sublime version of it. It can actually talk to the exact same servers. Don't get confused by that if you're not familiar with this. It doesn't mean that it's shipping your code to a remote computer anywhere. It runs something directly on your system. This client server is the name of the architecture that is used, generally speaking, for something like that. You can provide a lot of a lot of help in that. And yeah, startup IntelliJ can take a while. I used IntelliJ and WebStorm and app code and a C-Line for a while before I moved to Sublime Text. Now, Sublime doesn't have the same level of code intelligence out of the box, but it's a faster editing experience. It's faster to start up. You can install packages like LSP to get that level of functionality if you'd like it. And this is all having to do with how Sublime is extensible and open-ended. So everything that Sublime supports out of the box when you install it is something that will work for all of the languages that it supports by default, and it needs to be open enough to be able to support all languages that you might want to include, including languages that might not even exist yet. You might be someone that's creating your very own programming language, and you might want to provide support. So Sublime's implementation of stuff has to be sort of more open-ended in that regard. Yes, the question is, can I use frameworks pretty well? I would say, yeah, anything that you can do in any other editor, you can do in Sublime Text. Now, this might be a case where you might want something like, for example, if you're using Vue, you might want to install this package, because it will provide you with, like, say, maybe some more intelligence than you're expecting. I would also say, like I said previously, it may be a good idea just for, a day or two to just play around with what Sublime can do before you install packages, to see what stuff it is that you think you're missing before you go looking to see what packages can fill that in. Because frequently there are problems that people report. For example, this Anaconda package, as you can see, it's in the top 100 packages. There's 879,000 installs of this. It says it turns Sublime 3 into a full-featured Python development IDE, including auto-completion, code linting, IDE features, and so on. And that sounds like something that you might want, but there are some things about this that actually cheese people off. They install this package and then they get mad that it's telling them about code problems, and that's the linting aspect. And the syntax definitions and the auto-completion might actually be better in the core than this package provides, depending on your use case. So it's always a good idea to know what you're missing and how the experience behaves before you start augmenting it, I would say. Except for, like we pointed out, a couple of key packages that are more support, if you will. They're not in your face for editing purposes like override audit and package dev and package control. Those are packages that just sort of sit in the background, providing you assistance with things, but not in an obtrusive way and not in a way that changes the core experience in any appreciable way. Ayu says, I love fresh Sublime with all the default features. Yes, indeed. I run very few packages myself. Mine, of course, a few others, but for the most part, and I recognize this might not be something everybody might like to do, but because I am a developer, sometimes there might be a feature for which I could install the package, but if I can replicate it in a plugin that I write myself, then I will do that because that helps me learn a little bit more about stuff, and then I'm not using a package. Pardon me. Hello, Ashwin. How are you doing this morning? Well, I hope. We're discussing some various things. People are having questions about Sublime Text. G-Bound, hello. Welcome, sir. Can we get a watch window in Sublime? I assume that's something debugger related. For that, I think this is the debugger adapter protocol. Yes, in the same way that LSP, which stands for Language Server Protocol, is a protocol for an editor of some sort, some description, to talk to an external process that has the ability to calculate deep, meaningful information about a language. The debug adapter protocol is the same thing, but for debugging. So the debugger package is something that will provide that level of action. You can see sort of a screenshot of it here. Depending on what it is that you're running, I don't have a lot of experience with setting this up. These are the things that will allow you to debug by default. LLDB, so basically anything like C, C++, Chrome, Firefox, Node, Python, Go. So there may be a little bit of a setup here, but as you can see in the picture, I believe watch has got to be one of these things. Variables, modules, that sure looks like a watch to me. I've never personally used it, heard good things about it though. In particular, the fact that it is providing this nice little UI here, because as of right now, this isn't something that Sublime really does out of the box. They've done a lot of work here to get this working. Oh, you caught it. Oh, you caught. Did you catch the virus, Ashwin? I'm glad you're feeling better. Yeah. See, now, I don't personally use LSP at the moment, and that's not for any philosophical reason like it's terrible or it's awful or it's slow or it's bloated or anything like that. It's just that I am of an age, as you can see from my beard, where tools didn't really have that sort of functionality, and I've sort of developed a philosophy and a way of working over the years in which I like autocomplete, but I prefer to be more familiar with the tools that I'm working with, the languages that I'm working with. So I sort of issue pulling up like documentation for a method and the 10 different ways to call it directly in the editor. I'd rather take the time to go to an external debug, or an external browser window and look into that sort of stuff, just so that it's sort of enticing me to look at a little bit more of what I'm doing, so I gain a little bit more information. I'm weird that way, but videos on that package and how to use it will be eventually coming to the channel. We just need to work with it a little bit so I can provide advice for it, because right now the best thing I can say is you should install it. We've played with it a little bit on streams and it seems pretty cool for what it does, but apart from that I can't provide any targeted advice. Oh wow, I'm glad you're feeling better, Ashwin. My goodness. Just not being able to spell my coffee would probably really make me sad, I think. Sad indeed. Let's pin that tab for there. So there's that. Now I'm trying to think, does anybody in the chat have examples of packages that are sort of must-have or things that we could look into here in some fashion? Go ahead and let me know if you're unfamiliar, and we can look at them here. I'm trying to think. the main things that I hear people talking about are usually LSP to get things up and running, and then the couple that we previously mentioned just to keep your copy of Sublime Text running and easier to configure, basically. And then after that, what you install depends on what it is that you need, like support for a language you might not have. One thing I loved in Sublime is that I spend 99% of my time in terminal. I installed the terminal extension, and it's very nice. Oh, the Terminus package is very cool. This reminds me, someone sent me a mail about this. They were doing something with a build system that was interactive in Python in a panel and in a tab, I think. Cool little program. And it kept wanting to clear the panel, and so it just saw text at the top, and it wasn't quite working for them. And after seeing the problem, I have to get back to them, but the reason for that is there's a bug in the library that Terminus uses behind the scenes to connect things up that makes things not totally mesh. Soylent Bob, hello. Welcome, sir. Long time no see. How are you doing? And Ben, hello, sir. Welcome to the stream. My goodness, we're getting a full house packed in here tonight. We've just been going over a few, maybe must-have packages or might be nice sorts of packages. If you have suggestions for those sorts of things, please shout them out in the channel. I'll also point out links. I don't mind if they're there. YouTube doesn't want to show them. If you have a link that you would like to share with the chat, you can go into the Discord and message me there, or put it into one of the chat channel or the YouTube channel in my Discord, and then let me know in the chat, and I will bring it into the stream. It would appear that YouTube just does not want links in chat unless you're a moderator. Is it possible to keep running in the same tab? Well, let's see. Whoops. All right, hang on. Have you seen this video? That did not copy as much as I thought it did. Pardon me. I need to pick the item. This video. I'm sorry. There is a way to do that. Basically, you need to provide a tag, and it'll just keep reusing it. We can show a simple example of that here. What has happened to the package control page these days? I don't know. It seems to work fine here. There was a problem earlier in the week related to DNS, and depending on where you are in the world, the DNS lookup would fail. But I think that should be resolved now. If it's not, you might want to try a different DNS server to see if that solves the problem. Like, temporarily use Google's 8.8.8.8. That may resolve potential issues. Let's start a brand new thing like this and say, if we split the tab, I'll just sloop this over just like so. Say we want to Python build. Let's say we did something like this with Python. So we open up the default Python, copy it, close it, go new build system, paste it, save it. We'll call this Python test, for example. And if we wanted to use this in Terminus, we would need a target key of Terminus exec and a cancel key of Terminus cancel build, like so. This on its own is enough to make this build system work exactly the same as it normally would, but using Terminus. If instead you wanted to have it in a tab, you would use Terminus open instead and remove the cancel. And this is covered in that video that I linked up there. Now, if we were to actually use this particular build, let's say we go to Tools, Build System. We'll set it to Python Test just to make life a little bit easier. And then we can say print hello like this and save this into my home directory as, I do not like you, file manager, hello.py. Oh, so every time I run this build and pick it, pardon me. We need one of those if you're using terminus open. Otherwise, the tab will hang around forever. Build, thank you. That's not how that's called, isn't it? It's auto_close. Live, I'm telling you, right? Okay, go here. Build, we get a tab. Build, we get a tab. Build, we get a tab. That's not really what you want, generally speaking. It might be if you want to keep track of stuff. We can do something like this. My Python panel, like this. Could be any string you like. Doesn't necessarily have to be that. But build, get a tab. Build, reuses the tab. Build, reuses the tab. So that's the easiest way to pull something like that off. Just stop pasting stuff in and add a tag to your build. Let's see. And the thing Ashwin pointed out here, this is related to the fact that package control supports installing packages, and it supports installing libraries that might be used by packages. That currently doesn't work for packages that are written to use the new 3.8 plugin, Python 3.8 plugin host that ships with Sublime Text 4, which only new packages will use. Existing packages won't use it unless the author of the package opts in for compatibility reasons. And the version of package control that's currently available doesn't support libraries for packages running in that new host yet, but that is stuff that is in the works. So that part is coming, but I'm not sure if that's what you meant by problems with, or what happened to the package control page recently. Tip to organize directories to use with Sublime. I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that, and I may or may not want to have logging of commands turned on, because that is just irritating. What exactly do you mean by that particular thing? We will close this window. There was a question right when the stream was starting about navigating around inside of your code. And for that, I would recommend the go to anything that's up here in the menu. Go to anything. This is the preeminent way to jump around to any file inside of the code. For example, if I wanted to edit the core file, I can type core, here's the file, and I hit the key, and I'm now editing it. Inside of a file, you can use go to symbol, which is Control R in this particular case. And now we can see the names of all of the functions that exist within this file. We can see as we scroll through this list, it's navigating us there. If we want to stop at one of these, we hit enter, and now that's something we're looking at. If you were to skip around and pick something a little bit different and push escape, you jump back to where you were. So you can use this as a way to peek at other parts of the code and remind yourself, oh yeah, that's what the setting command does. Okay, it takes that argument, and you push escape and you're back to doing what you might be doing, wanting to use the settings thing. We can take this one step further by using, again, the go to anything. We can choose a file like core, but now we can use this @ character, and now we're not only opening this file, we can also open it specifically at a location as well. We can do other things with this panel. If you use the colon, you can go to a specific line like that, and you can do that again while you're using go to anything. I'm using the keys for this. Remember, go into the go to menu if you haven't committed these to memory yet. The core.py file at line 99. There we are. We've navigated right over. Also, if you hover over things, you can see other places where they are referenced. Clicking on one of those links will jump you directly to that location. You can also see where things are defined and jump directly to that location. And if you use the appropriate keys, which in this case is holding Control when you click or clicking on this, you'll get a new Sublime Text 4 split tab where you get to see this and the definition all at once inside of the same tab. I don't do a lot of work with virtual environments. There may be a package for that. before we get too far off the rails here, I believe we can do something like, I can't remember what it's actually called. Probably should have done that a different way. Get video link by tag. Easily open and navigate your files in Sublime Text. That would be this video right here, assuming I copied that appropriately. Which goes into that in more detail. The files that sources are files that are open in the window and files that appear in the sidebar along the left-hand side. So setting that up is key as well. And in that regard, if I could type correctly, I believe there's something about the catalog. But I'm looking in the wrong one. We want this one. Nope. Sidebar. Your top Sublime. Take full control of the Sublime Text sidebar. I appreciate that the level of video titles leaves a little bit to be desired for some of the earlier videos on the channel. It's an ongoing work in progress. Those are the key things that I would say to get under your fingers and into your memory regarding navigating around. I don't use the keys for this super often, but you should be able to do the exact same thing with keys as well as using the hover pop-ups if you wanted to see things. It probably would have been a lot cooler if I had done that for something like that. We get to see all of the places where this is, and I did that entirely with the keyboard. Yeah, Ashwin probably. I think Ashwin may have more experience with that than I do. I will say, I could have swore that someone talked recently about a package related to that, like so. I think that's the one. Reusable build system. Execute code with a virtual environment without editing your paths manually. Find virtual environments in the open folders or anywhere in your system. Again, this isn't something that I've used, but this may be something that you're interested in. It says it was last modified 6 years ago, and it's for Sublime Text 3. Keep in mind, if you're using Sublime Text 4, it is compatible with Sublime Text 3 for pretty much everything. A lot of work has gone into making sure anything that used to work will continue to work. There's only a few areas where there might be potential issues because of improvements in Sublime Text, like auto-completion. So don't necessarily let the fact that packages may have been seemingly edited a while ago. Sometimes that might be because the package was abandoned by its author. It might be because it does exactly what it needs to do and there's not been any problems with it, so no one's had to go in there and wrench on it a little bit. So this may be a handy thing as well. We will also say that build systems can execute any external task that you might like. If you can execute it in a shell, you can execute it from a build system. So all else being equal, it's possible to, if you can craft a command line that'll do the thing that you want to do, you could make a build do it as well. But for something like this, a package like this might make perhaps a little bit more sense, I would think. Did I miss any other questions here? I don't think so. Oh, a tip on organizing directories for use in Sublime. I would say that is very much a personal preference sort of thing. If you mean actually having them inside of the Sublime Text sidebar, you may be interested in that video that I linked just up there, which will tell you how you can add folders directly to the sidebar and tell Sublime what files you want to see in there and what files you don't, what folders you don't, because the less things there are in here, the easier it is to navigate around through the code. For example, this is going to show you every file that exists in this sidebar that's visible in this sidebar unless it's something binary or you've told Sublime it's binary. So if you're a Node.js developer and you don't have if you have the node modules folder in the side, then trying to open a file named index is likely to show you roughly 700 files, and you're never going to find the one that you actually want. So there's that. Error highlighting for all types of files. There is a Sublime Linter package, which I think I saw mentioned of in a comment previously. There is a package for Sublime Text called Sublime Linter. Linter, like so, Sublime Linter. And this is a package much like LSP, in which this Sublime Linter package is the framework that allows linters to do something. You still need to actually install linting packages for the particular type of thing you're trying to lint in order to make this work. LSP is the exact same way. You install LSP and you install also the support package that you might want for LSP. Let's do that before I go too blind here. So the one on its own doesn't necessarily do anything. That said, I think, despite the fact that Sublime Linter is still being actively developed, I have seen or heard tell that perhaps you may want to use LSP instead of Sublime Linter unless you're only looking for error tracking. If you're doing anything that also wants code intelligence, then LSP might be your one-stop shop for that unless the server that you're providing can't provide those sorts of things. So there's that. Yeah, I'm the same way, Ashwin. I tend to do that as well. And what Ben is talking about there is that build systems. And I don't think this is something we've actually covered in any of the videos, actually, which is unfortunate. Whoops, that's not going to do anything interesting. If we look for C, start a program. This is not valid C because there is not a semicolon on the end of that line. If I save this in my home directory as, say, test.c, all right, test2.c, fine. We need to set the build system to automatic, which it is. Good. If I try to build this, C single file, let's just compile it. And oh, look, there's totally an error, and it's telling me what it is. If this is the sort of thing that you would like to do. So the build system is telling me that this character constant is too long for its type. See, I've done too much JavaScript lately. So I can, even if this file isn't open, double-clicking the error will open the file, and then we can just go ahead and fix that because single quotes and double quotes are distinct in C. Run the build again. Now it's unhappy that there's a semicolon expected before the return. When I double click on it, it takes me right to it. Now it seems to compile okay, and it will run as well. So for errors like that, if your tools are generating errors, Sublime can capture those and allow you to navigate. This is a very simple example, of course, but if you were doing something that was much more complex with multiple C files or multiple Java files or the like, as long as your build system is set up to be able to capture the errors, it'll be able to navigate you to them directly as well. Keep in mind also, if I do this, it says that there's an error there, and if I close this, if I reopen the file, Sublime should repopulate the error in there because it knows, which allows you to navigate to files that have problems and immediately get the same little error diagnostic. If you're using Sublime Text 3 instead of Sublime Text 4, like I am here, instead of using these annotations on the right-hand side of the window, you'll see little inline speech bubbles or, that point at the error location. Those are referred to as phantoms. And both of those things, if you look in your default, whoa, my goodness, it is. There we go. Look for build, show errors in line. This needs to be turned on for that to work as well. And the build system needs to support it. That's something that's being covered yet, but it should be coming soon, I would think, in our discussions on build systems. I'm using this in my build system. Post window hooks carry file to pane direction right. The build result keeps moving to the next right pane after adding the yes. There. That is actually something that I think covered in that video that I linked previously. The issue, such as it is, I think that happens if you're using some, well, no, this is a twofer. I have seen that the video on that, which I think is the supercharging your builds in Sublime Text, I think is the one that we want. Let's take a look and see. I will paste this in here. Take a quick peek. Do we have Sublime? Did I not put that in there? Let's see if this is the. This may be not the one we're interested in. No. You are not the correct video. Shame on you, sir. Oh, let's actually pick the command first, shall we? There is a way to do that, yes. Terminus. That is the one we want. Making terminus reuse the same tab, side-by-side default, stopping undesirable focus changes, and reusing tabs in a side-by-side build. This is more or less the situation that you are talking about here. So if I mute that and we play through this, we might notice this actually happening here. Here is a tag and a post window. Oh, pardon me, I thought I paused that. I didn't pause that. Okay, zoom it forward just a little bit so we can see. Thus, what do we see here? We see a tag and a post window hook of carry file to pane direction right. And if we watch through this, we might notice that it just keeps creating tabs to the right and to the right and to the right. And this is indeed a solvable problem. In this particular case, we used a plugin for this, and that plugin sample is right here. So I will link this in the chat to make it easier for you to find. If you watch this video, and in particular, if you look in the description, the example plugin code is this right here. You can get it, this particular thing working by having it either close the tab and then reopen it. The problem basically that you're seeing here is that when the window hook carries the file to a pane, the focus changes, and then the next time that the same build happens, it will already be in the right-hand pane, so it carries forward from the right instead of staying in the right place. So this little small plugin stops that from happening. Doing it with a tag is sort of what causes that sort of thing. Also, you may be interested in knowing, if you're using Sublime Text 4, you have the ability to select multiple files side by side like this. So if this was the code and this was the output, if they were both selected, you would see the code and you would see this on the right. And that is actually available in the selection menu here. Tab selection, select to right. There's a command associated with that, and you can use that in your build system to make it do that natively. And then you always get side-by-side stuff regardless of what the window layout is, and it won't keep shooting off to the right. Automatic cancel and new build at changes. If you're using Sublime Text 4, any build that's currently running will be automatically canceled when before the next build starts. So in that particular case, you should be directly good to go straight out of the box. There's a specific key you have to put in your build system to tell Sublime to not stop the currently running build before it goes onward. If you're using Sublime Text 3, that functionality isn't there, and you need to remember to cancel your build or use a little bit of a plugin to solve that particular problem. All else being equal. These are some good questions. You guys are knocking it out of the park with the interactions here. Also, point out, you guys are off the chain with your subscriptions as well. The support that you guys show to the channel, really makes this whole creating videos thing worthwhile. I could not do it without the support of the kind, generous people who come into the live streams and ask questions in the comment section and on the Stack Overflow and in the Discord and in private messages and in emails and on the forum and everything. You guys really make this sort of thing, possible. Kudos to you. I very much appreciate that level of support. I still have this guy open. What we're working on in my Twitch stream is a little brain in a jar animated person to hang out on the stream with us. I forgot that I was still running that. So if you're interested in seeing that little guy come to life, Twitch live stream is where you will see something like that. And I don't think we need to save anything there. We did not mean to be making any specific changes in that particular case. I'm going to delete that file. I don't think we need that one per se. And we did a release of Override Audit fairly recently. So there's a few things that I would like to do with newer versions of Override Audit. I have a couple of branches for these that are going to need fixing because changes have been made since the last time something happened. One is the idea that you might be able to, or you might want to be able to say, tell me please, what files have I modified in existing packages? Because I have customized my copy of Sublime Text, and it might tell me these are the files that you have modified. You've modified the Python indent rules. You've modified the key bindings for the outliner package for reasons I don't really remember at the moment. I've added a miscellaneous TM preferences file to the HTML package, and I've modified some files in the default package as well. And if you watch the previous video from not this week, from the week previous about synchronizing your settings across Sublime Text, that talks about synchronizing your user package, because that's the place where your customizations to Sublime itself live. Your key bindings, your package settings, your menu items, your command palette items, etc. all live inside of your user package. These aren't the user package, but what if you actually wanted to synchronize these across to some other system? Well, we actually have a level of support for that. If I stopped doing that, that would be great. So I think what we could probably do is see how well this might actually work. It's funny you say that, because I used to remind people to please, like and subscribe, and I got backlash from people because they say they remember how to like and subscribe. So I'm feeling my way towards what's the least obtrusive way to remind people about that sort of thing. I usually try to mention it at the end, and I have a little lower third, but yeah. It's a delicate balancing act, Some people resent being reminded, and then other people are like, "Oh yeah, that's right. I totally should do that. That's a good point." One of those situations where it's possibly hard to keep all the people happy all of the time. So I might say, if there is a create patch. So this is the functionality that we've been working on, and I say working on, but the last time I worked on this was probably 6-8 months ago or so. Yes, ring the bell, indeed. If I say it, I always say, please use the buttons down below to thumb, subscribe, and share as you deem appropriate. Because I don't want to specifically tell people to thumb a video up. I only want you to do that if you actually liked it. And you should subscribe if you want to see more. And if you do subscribe, you probably want to use the bell to get YouTube to actually tell you when there's a video. Because unless you spend all of your time just watching through my back catalog of however many videos there are, like 200 or something, it's probably not going to keep surfacing them for you for a while unless you specifically tell it, hey, there's a new thing every week, and it's like anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes long, and my usage of Sublime Text might be greatly enhanced. You tell me about that one. Yeah. I think the real trick, G-Bound, is in how frequently you do it. Well, I mean, there is that. I have that turned on myself. What I get is a notification on the phone that says, "Hey, there's a video," and then I can just tap the watch later if I want to actually watch that one later, or swipe it away if it's one that I don't think that I'm interested in. And then when I have spare time, I use my watch later playlist to go over some of the stuff that I have been meaning to watch, which includes at this point a couple of very long training videos for a couple of different things that I have not had the time to get to yet. Not that those are things that came up as a part of a notification, mind you. But that's also part of the as you deem appropriate part of that thing. I know some people always tell you, smash the like button, punch the like button like a boss, and whatnot. I don't want everybody to just hit like just because they're watching the video or because I said it. I'd really like people to like it because they thought it was useful. I mean, if you want to click it, even if you didn't like the video, I'm not going to say no. Those sorts of things definitely help the channel be seen by other people, which just helps the growth and helps more videos come to the channel. But I am historically awful at self-recommendation and, that sort of thing. Self-promotion, if you will. So I'm trying to get better about that, but it feels weird, Exactly. The more people watch the video, the more YouTube will show it to people that might be interested in that sort of thing. It could just surface it for strangers who didn't realize that I am a font of Sublime Text knowledge. I think more often than not, traffic is driven by links that are being posted in various places, or by people that are like, how the heck does this work? And then they search, and hopefully my video is up near the top, which is where your engagement can really help. Because if somebody searches for something, and I've done a video recently, and somebody did a video 5 years ago about Sublime Text 2, and theirs has received more views than mine or more thumbs than mine, then the inference is that must be a more important video because more people seem to watch it and it gets surfaced to the top, and then people don't necessarily get the help that they need. That sort of thing. The holy YouTube algorithm, indeed. We're all slaves to the algorithm, to the magic black box. How does it work? Nobody knows. Is it okay for you to take a break for a little while from doing videos if you're feeling burned out? Absolutely. But will it potentially cause knock-on problems for your content? Probably. Will anybody tell you for sure? No, they won't. Certainly if you have millions of subscribers, it's not going to cause too much of a problem because you have a lot of carryover to keep things running, like a flywheel on your channel. So this is the nascent functionality for what we might want to do with Override Audit, which might say we want to create a patch for a single file, which let's say in the default package is the paste from history. And that's going to generate this little diff file, if you will. Now you might notice that the tab is named default paste from history.oa patch. It tells us that the shipped packages, default packages version of paste from history has this date, mine has this date, and here's the change. Now the part of you could actually save this and give it to somebody else. Now what's missing from this is the ability to take this patch and apply it to your copy of Sublime Text. But arguably handy little feature when we get to that part. You can also do the same thing and create a patch, but this time for a whole package. And in that case, we might pick, say, the default package. And now there are two diffs in here. One where I added the regular expression syntax for the replace widget so that when there's things in the replace, it gets syntax highlighting. The idea behind this is for a particular package, for a particular file in a package, and I thought we had a version of this for every file in every package, but perhaps not. Perhaps we decided that was a little out there. You could save this, give it to somebody, and as long as they're using Override Audit, essentially there would be a context menu item that was apply patch, which would take this, ask you to make sure you're sure, verify that it can be automatically patched, and then create the override for you, which would make solving problems for people and sharing these sorts of things a nice thing to do. Say in the Discord, recently someone asked a question about Python and its ability to use match and case. And the auto indent doesn't work for that, which is why there is this indentation rules change right here. If we scroll this over, we can see what mine has that one doesn't have is match and case in here. In order to tell somebody to do this, what I had to do was create this and then paste this diff and say, this is the change you want to make. But imagine if I could have created a patch for indentation rules, got this exact file here, saved it, and then just said, download this file, open it up, right click on it, make sure you have override audit installed, and choose apply patch. Your problem will be fixed. Life would be pretty great. The reason we stalled out on this one by and large is in that whole application of patches thing. There's a lot of subtle nuance there in making sure that all of the files are in a state where they can be patched. For example, if there wasn't already a paste from history file, then we could easily just create one with these changes and everything would be great. What if there was a file there? Now we need to be more careful about it. Can we apply this patch without disrupting anything? Which would basically mean that we would need to know exactly what both sides of the diff look like and make sure that when this is applied, that the appropriate, if something else changed the same thing, then we can't apply this patch right now, which isn't insurmountable. The patch tool does it, for example. I have some sample code that does a thing like this. Or what happens if you're applying a set of diffs like this, but one of them fails? I guess we need to rewind the unfailed ones back. And what if there were other changes? We need to back some stuff up. So it's not an insurmountable task by any stretch of the imagination. That's just the point at which we sort of stopped working on this and started working on something else. I can't remember what the circumstances were for that at the time. I think there was something that was a little more pressing that needed to be worked on. But this is something that is something that we should be working on, I would think. The other bit of this is we can close all of those out for the time being. Thank you very much. If we look here, I bet you it is refreshing. Yeah, I think that was one of the things that was actually in there as well. That's why this has version. It tells you exactly what package this comes from and what version of Sublime it was created in. So one of the other nuances there would be that if your version of Sublime isn't the same as my version of Sublime, then it would have to pop up a dialog box and tell you, hey, this patch is not for your version of Sublime. It looks like it'll probably apply correctly. Are you sure? And maybe we need something that would actually preview what the change looks like. These are the sorts of ideas that we need to work on before this could be fully realized and released. But I know at the very least, Keith was very interested in something like this. It seems like something that would be very handy for people that are, and that this might have been something that was talked about in the Sublime Text Discord earlier today as well, talking about when the packages that are shipped to a Sublime Text that are support packages for languages get updated. They get updated in the Git repository, but they don't get distributed to anybody usually until a Sublime build happens. And if it's a change, you might not see it until a stable build. So there can be a lag time where a syntax problem has been resolved, but it's in a development build and it's not in a stable build, and a person is using a stable build and not a development build, so they don't have access to that particular change yet, and maybe they might want it. And one thing you could do is say, you could here apply this patch, and it's going to say, hey, this is a version mismatch. Don't worry about that. You just go ahead and go. Perhaps we could even add an something like this, you could manually say min version 4111. So as far back as here, it'll still work, but it was made for this one. And then if someone was using a previous version to this, they'd say, no. But yeah, this is one of the things I think either Keith put the idea in my head by talking about this, or I told him what I was working on, and he said, this would be great for that thing that Ashwin just said right there. The other, there's the whole version thing is really where you have to be careful about that, because one of the things that was discussed is development builds of Sublime Text occasionally have more support for syntax stuff than the core does. And in that case, you don't want to use it in any build that is a stable build. You only want to use it in a development build because it won't work properly there for the syntax. But this is something that we are working on. The other thing that we're working on here is what would happen if this. We can actually show a demonstration of this. Let me close this real quick. If I go to packages and go to default and touch, paste from history, something like that. Oops. Really? It's been so long since I used touch. What's the argument, man? Yeah, it's minus t. Oh. Is that not, why is that not valid? Why is that not valid, man? Option file. Oh, I suppose we maybe need to do this. That really seems like something that I have done in the past. Double check. Date. Pardon me. Okay. According to this paste from history file was last modified October 18th in 2011. What happens if we start our copy of Sublime Text now? After it starts up and everything loads, in theory, assuming I didn't break anything too hardcore, we get a warning about that sort of thing. Possibly because we're in a test version of things. It is, oh, that's right. It's different version of Sublime, right? Okay. Hang on. We're fully simulating something here. We're simulating that 10 years ago, I updated that file. Boop, boop, boo. Let's do this. 10 years ago, I created an override on a file in the default package. And strangely enough, for 10 years, there was never an update to Sublime Text. But after 10 years and one day, there was an update, and it changed that particular file. And I restarted Sublime Text because Sublime Text updated itself to the latest version. And after it restarted, we should get an error that says, hey, there's a problem here. And the problem is that this file on disk is 10 years old, but the file that ships with Sublime Text is not. The file that I created is older than this one, the one that ships with Sublime. That means that this file has been potentially modified by its authors, which means Sublime's still using my old one, but maybe there's a bug fix or a feature or something, and I'm masking it. So this pops up. This is why you want to have this package here. Like I said, 99% of the time it does nothing, but it might pop up this. If you were using Sublime Text 3 and you extracted the default package, you broke various things when you moved to Sublime Text 4. As a result, the enter key won't work in various places anymore. If you had installed Sublime Text, the very first thing that would have happened, sorry, if you had installed Override Audit into your copy of Sublime Text, the very first thing that would happen after you update to version 4 is a thing that says, hey, this key map file has changed. Yours has a problem. Now I can right click on this and look at it and say, yep, those changes are good. But this file on disk is still 10 years old. So what we can do is we can right click and say freshen, or we can right click on the package and say everything in default, please freshen that. This is the situation that we're in. But imagine that there wasn't one, that there were 10 or 20 or 50 or something. It could potentially be a lot. So I'm going to quit that and restart again. And I believe we should get the exact same thing popping up. It should probably just reuse the same thing, I would imagine. So now we can do this. We can right click here and freshen all expired unchanged overrides. This is new functionality. This is another feature that we have been working on. What does this do? This says, please look at all of the overrides that exist. Find all of the ones that are expired. That means that the file on disk is older than the new one, which means there's a potential problem. For every one of those, do a comparison to see, is there any difference between the old one and the new one? And if there aren't any differences, it can just freshen them automatically. The reason why this is important is because people like Keith and the author of Package Dev, Fichtfall, and probably Ashwin as well, I would imagine, a variety of people in the Sublime Text community will actually work on the packages that ship with Sublime Text. And they might have them extracted out and good to go, and they're working on changing them. And every time they do an update, they get warned that their files are out of date, but they're not really out of date. So being able to easily freshen them all up is a feature that has been asked for. That's also something that we need to work on for features here. So that's two things that we will be working on in streams here and there, maybe even, who can say, in one of the Twitch streams as well, just for something a little new. I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna freshen that, which just basically touches the timestamp of the file on disk to make it seem newer, so Sublime stops complaining about it. But the content of the file remains completely unchanged in that regard. So there's something else that I don't know how easy this might be, but one of the features we have here is this. We can say we want to just open a resource. Well, one thing we could actually do is use view package file, and this will show us all of them. I'm working up a bug report for this, by the way. These files aren't actually supposed to be here. I was working through the other day exactly what version of Sublime that happened in. But say I wanted to look at the Python build system, then I might type Python build, and now there's like a few of them, but I want the one from the Python package. This is one way to do this, but this is a very large set of files, and it's very fast, it's very handy if you know what it is that you're looking for. If you're not entirely sure what you're looking for, if you just know I'm looking for something in the Python package, then it helps a bit. But notice I'm not just seeing Python, I'm seeing Python Markdown and Python Jinja and the like, and the Sublime Lib Python library based on the way that the fuzzy matching works. But what if I just wanted these? Well, one of the things Override Audit provides is open resource. And this is going to show us a list of every package that exists through the entirety of Sublime. And we might want the default package, let's say, or in our case, the Python package. Now it's showing us a list of all of the files that exist, but there is actually a folder in here. There are some snippets in here. So this is the snippets. This is the remainders of the things. And if we were to choose one of these things, like say this, then this file will open and will be good to go. Similarly, you can create an override the exact same way by browsing. And there are other places where this browser is used as well. For example, I believe if we say diff single override, it's going to say Here are packages that have overrides. Here are the overrides in that package. Here's your diff. So this browse functionality is used all throughout this. One of the new features in Sublime Text 4 is, if I remember correctly, the ability to use an enhanced quick panel which provides kind information. Kind information is when you get a hover pop-up or the autocomplete pop-up that lets you know a little bit more information about what it is that you're actually looking at. Let's see if we can find an example of that here. See, this has a little f because it is a function in that particular case. Or if I do browse, what's that thing even called? Browse command list, pardon me. We can see kind of what we might want here. We can provide this kind information along the left, which provides a little bit more information. Because there's some information about this we might actually be interested in displaying in this panel to make life easier. Some packages are packages that ship directly with Sublime Text, like Default and ASP and ActionScript and the like. Some of these are packages that don't ship with Sublime Text, but which I have installed, like Comment Glory and Config Popup and Channel Repository Tools. And some packages aren't installed by me, but they're just loose folders, like this diskless package from a couple of Novembers ago when we were working on creating files and never actually letting them touch disk at all, a diskless edit buffer, and the encryptorizer that does stuff. What if the browse for opening a resource or creating an override had a little S for shipped and an I for installed? That seems like it might be a pretty, a nice little bit of extra information. Similarly, I believe what we might actually need to do is, if we were to watch this, if we create an override in default and look for Python files, we see paste from history? No, we don't. And why? Because it's already an override. But if we said we wanted to open a resource, and the resource we wanted to open was the paste from history, we can see it has this little text cranged onto the end of it that says override. Not the greatest thing in the world, but as we just saw, if we browse the command list, we have the ability to display some text on the right hand side now, which isn't something that we could technically really do before. So the world really opens up to us in our little browser here to be able to display more information, and that's something that I'd like to do irrespective of those other particular changes. What I'm not sure of offhand is how easy it might actually be to do something like that. But this is the file that represents this. And we need to look for show quick panel. We take this sort of one step at a time through these things. If we wanted to browse for packages, we would give it the window to browse inside of, what kind of things we want to browse for, and it will do it. So this provides the ability to browse for a package amongst all known packages. The browse can be filtered to show all packages or only packages that contain at least one override. And the no override option is treated like all in this particular case. So the reason for this is if you're wanting to open a resource, you want to open it from any package. But if you want to open an override, then the only packages that make sense to display are packages that have actual overrides inside of them. And this should map the entirety of this. Now, the items are the things that are actually interesting to us here. So in theory, if get contents in this particular case returned something more than just a list of strings, then we would have more information in that particular panel while we were doing stuff. That one seems fairly easy, I think. There's also one for a resource browser, and in this particular case, this allows you to browse for a package file amongst a list of files contained in a package. And again, this can be filtered to so you can see all of the resources, or only overrides, or only files that aren't overrides. So if you just want to open any resource at all, you want all. If you want to browse for an override, you want to open an override. And if you want to create an override, then what you want to be displayed is the lists of files that aren't already overrides, because there's no point in opening a file if it already is an override. It's a nice little user experience thing, a nice little UX thing. This, I believe, should do the exact same thing. It needs to, if we look for wherever the display panel calls select item, browse calls display panel calls select item, calls show quick panel calls select item, which may call display panel again with the list of items. So this one gets a little bit potentially more tricky as far as our filterings are concerned. The last thing here is package resource browser, that does first one and then the other. So it browses for packages and then it browses for files inside of a package. These are all distinct things because you may have been told the name of the package, in which case you just need to browse resources. You may want to browse resources and packages together. Pick me a package, choose one. Pick me a file from a package, choose the other one. Pick me a package, and then pick me a file from it. That would be the third one. I'm sure you have to go through this in a little bit of, will that work? Yes. A little bit of sort of trial and errorness and see, because it's been a bit since I've actually looked at this code. Should be fairly well commented for this sort of thing, one hopes. Anyway, keep in mind, if you're watching and you still have questions about Sublime Text or anything related to this or not, feel free to just drop those in the chat. You don't have to worry about disrupting anything we might be working on. We're here to hang out with each other, have a good time, answer questions, and do a little bit of work on Sublime Text related things. So if you have a question, shout it out. If you just want more information on the goings on of how packages are created, this is a great thing for that too. And if you have any questions about this, this is also a good thing to ask. Ask away if you have a question. And Walt, under the desk, will snore away as well. Now, I think what we're going to need, yeah, I sure hope it's well commented. I mean, the main thing for me in all of these is that, and I'm pretty sure while I was working on it, because it is my want, after all, is anywhere where it might not be immediately obvious, that's where you're going to find comments. Not necessarily on every line, not like you might see in some of the JavaScript code that we're writing, because while things are going through a design process, I like to sort of document the design that we're trying out while we're writing it, because it can be hard to keep that in mind until everything gels and becomes more cohesive, and then we can go back and clean things up. Let's see, questions. Any good markdown tools for Sublime? I've heard good things about, well, there's markdown editing. It's in the top 100. You may have issues with that. Oh, has that actually been topped up recently? Oh, all right then. I was going to say, this is one of those packages where it was very opinionated. It might still be. I don't know. I don't use it. Yeah, okay. There was once upon a time, this particular package, I'll paste it in here so you can just click the link. You don't have to even do the search. Where it decided on your behalf that if you were editing markdown files, they were going to be in this particular color scheme. And I think it even had at one point its own syntax definition. The version that ships with Sublime Text is pretty good now. But yeah. Oh yeah, last modified 2 weeks ago. would totally recommend that one if you're doing that sort of thing. Markdown preview by faceless user, also handy. Let's see what else we got here. Is there a way to access the 3 dots on the right of the tabs via a keyboard shortcut? The 3 dots? Do you mean in merge? No, that's not merge. This menu up here does not currently, you might not be able to see that. It's behind the chat. Pardon me. There. This menu does not currently have a key binding associated with it. No. I believe there's an open issue for that. Let's scroll that back down. Is there a way to change the column width via keyboard shortcut? For instance, let's say you have 2 columns, you want to change the width of a column. If you use the origami package, yes. I don't know what the command is for it offhand. Resize column. There we go. It goes in percentages. So if I wanted this to be 50-50, I could say 0.5. I can say 0.25 to make the left one 25% of the window and the right hand 75%. 0.1, 0.01 if you want to just have a single character. I think it was probably somewhere in the vicinity of that currently. There's also one of those for resize row as well, which isn't going to have any effect here. But if we went for that, then we could resize row and say that, 0.25 on the top, for example. It goes in percentages because the relative size of things stays the same regardless of how big the window actually is. Hang on. Is there a way to access the 3 dots to the right of the tabs via keyboard shortcut? The find in files where button. Yeah, I don't think there's a keyboard binding for that. You can add items to this menu, which you can't see because it's totally behind my big fat head, which is the 3 dots on the find in files panel. Yeah, there's not a key binding for that I'm aware of. You can add things to this menu though, if that was the thing you're looking for. But the drop arrow that allows you to see the list of files, that's not something that will that has a key binding. There is an issue for it. I think that might even be the one that I opened, as a matter of fact. But what it's really showing you is the list of files that are open in this particular group. If you wanted to navigate to one of those, you could use go to anything anyway, and it'll still find it. And there are some packages that will help you with that as well, although I'm not sure what their name is off the top of my head because I don't use one of them. There you go. I remember adding it a ways back. I think all of the item, any of the user interface items? I can't remember if that was one, opening up that particular the panel chooser menu, but I remember that one because it seems like a weird miss, if you will. There's not a key binding for there is a key binding for plus because it's just a way for you to create a new file. Which is one of those new things. Oh, and you can't actually see that there. Clicking the plus creates a new file, but so does just double clicking in the tab bar. So the reason why that button is there is that when the tab bar is full, you can still create a new tab. But you can always create a new tab by just pushing Control N. So that's less interesting than it could be. As much as it doesn't seem like it from watching me on stream, I try where possible to not use the mouse for things. I'd rather use the keyboard, like navigating between a couple of different files or navigating between that pane and the one that's currently hidden behind things and the like. On stream, I tend to use the mouse a lot more like I'm talking with my hands and using it to point. And there are some things that I do primarily on stream that as such I have a hard time focusing on the key bindings for them because I'm so used to using the mouse. But anytime that you can access something with the keyboard and not by having to reach over and touch the mouse, that's one step forward towards being able to do something with a minimum of fuss. I don't think that I have no, I don't have the version of this available yet. Let's do that. There was a change to this that I don't currently have in my Snappy documentation, although I have been working on that behind the scenes. That might be something that we work on in a future stream as well. Who can say? So we need to resort to looking at the actual documentation in a web page, if you can imagine. The show quick panel endpoint on a window shows a quick panel to select an item in a list. On done will be called once with the index of the selected item. If the quick panel was canceled, on done will be called with an argument of -1. And items may be a list of strings, which is what we're currently doing, a list of string lists where the first is the trigger and subsequent are the details shown below, and a list of quick panel items, which is the thing we're actually interested in here. The text to match against the user's input, optional Unicode string containing displayed below the trigger. I don't know that we necessarily care about details. The annotation to the right and the kind, yes. So let's do this real quick like. Whoops. Pardon me. There we go. So what we're looking at is this very simple thing up here for browsing packages. You create it with the window that it should be using to display things in, the types of resources that you'd like to, and a special filter function. When you call the browse method, you're providing it a list of all of the packages that it should be using to browse, which is usually gathered by a background thread. And this is what should be invoked when the choice is finished, which would be called with none if nothing was actually picked. And as we can see here, we call get contents on the list of packages that was provided to come up with the items that we provide. So what we're going to be providing here is a list of things. Right now, the list of things is a string because it has a list of the name for the name and package in package list if the filter applies. So what this is basically coming up with is a list of strings. What can we actually do about this? If a filter was provided, return that directly. If the file type is given and is override, then do that, otherwise do this. So this could potentially be slightly tricky. And we do only have about 20 minutes left in the stream. Here on YouTube, streams go for generally about 2 hours, unless somebody has some questions that we are dealing with and pushing through. So that's the thing we actually want to create. And we want to look at, I need a key binding for that one. We don't care about details. I guess the real question is, which parts of these do we actually need? Pardon me. All we really need to provide is the trigger, and everything else will automatically follow from there. But we sometimes want to include an annotation. Well, in this one, we don't want to include an annotation. In this one, we just want to include a kind. So let's very quickly. If we look at that again, the only thing that we definitely need, pardon me. The only thing we definitely need to provide is the trigger. So that's that. That's that. And that's just looking funny. So we probably want a little bit of that. And that's how that looked, right? Well. Sublime got kind of ambiguous, realistically. So if that was there, can't remember exactly which way this is called, but we're going to need to modify all of these. Where is this defined? Collect a list of package names from the given package list for which there is at least a single simple override file. Okay, so let's try this. Probably not the most performant, but there's usually not a ton of packages. The idea is that we would call, let's just go ahead and return items in this particular case. So here, here, and here, all the way to the end. The first thing is the list of items, and the second thing is package list, and something like that. So by default, when we reload that, if we were to look at, let's say, open resource, there's just the list of all of the packages that exist in there. Quick panel item for item in items. And now, assuming that worked, does that do anything? Kind is equal to sublime.kind keyword. I'm not 100% sure that I'm doing this part correctly. I don't think I've ever played with this previously. Okay. So we have that. The idea here is this would be an S for any package that ships with Sublime Text, and an I for any package that is in the installed packages folder, and U. Yes, I find it very handy myself, Octavius. I'm glad you like it. It will come as no surprise that I have a video on the channel that covers it. A couple of the key bindings in it actually got changed recently. I think if we look at origami, and key bindings. Um, some of them sort of conflict. The zoom, unzoom, and the resize. Um, they conflict with things as of some fairly recent-ish versions of Sublime Text. So if you like to zoom and unzoom, you may want to play around with adding these into your key bindings. Control K, Control Z, I believe is one that I've copied over here. Yeah. You can't sort of see that there, but the one for zooming and unzooming, these are origami keys. The new maintainer disabled them because they conflict with the keys for use in incremental diff. So I added them here because I committed so much brain power to remembering those that trying to convince my brain to type different keys was a non-starter. So I use Control K, Control R for remote revert modification instead of Control K, Control Z. That's this binding here. If we look over at this thing, I use this for revert modification because it's supposed to be that key, but I'm used to pushing that key for this, which means that I can't use the key binding for resizing rows, but mostly I want to resize columns, so that works out a little bit better. If you define your own key binding for this, by the way, you can change the fraction by which the zoom happens so that you can get more of a split, if you will. For example, I could do boop. Oh, if I put this in the right thing, huh? If I zoom that, I guess you really can't see that, but basically it is exactly as wide as the gutter, and that's it. Enough to remind me that it's there without also showing me file content, because usually I don't want to see it in that regard. So let's think about how we actually want this to work. And in particular, these are the items for here. These should only be used for quick panel item and list input item. Right. So let's copy this, first of all, over to here. Over to here, pardon me. And then we'll grab, this. Well, maybe that. And throw those in there as well, just for temporarily. When I close the Sublime Text, which I have 2 or more windows of 2 or more projects, and when Sublime Text opens the last window, can we make Sublime Text remember all of these windows and open it? Yeah, it does that by default. For example, this window has override audits package loaded in it. If I create a new window and load the project for the, let's say, the Twitch chat stuff that we were working on previously, and create another window and open in this one the OBOT nerd, I have 3 windows open right now, each with a project. If I was to quit Sublime, when I restart it, all of those windows come back in exactly the state that they were in, including this file having changes that weren't saved. So is that not working for you? Is that what you're trying to accomplish? Because if so, Sublime does that out of the box. We don't want you, and we don't want you. The settings you want for that, is hot exit. Exiting the application with hot exit enabled will cause it to close immediately without prompting. Unsaved modification and open files will be preserved and restored when next starting. Closing a window with an associated project will also close the window without prompting, preserving unsaved changes in the workspace file alongside the project. This is set to always. It's turned on by default. So by default in Sublime, if you have multiple windows open, even if you don't have an explicit project open in them, all windows have project data associated with them regardless, even if you haven't specifically wanted to save it to disk to recall it. All of those will recover back to the position that they were in. Well, they will all recover back when you restart. They may or may not come back to the same position. They should come back to the same position. So one thing to check is hot exit set to always. If it's not turned on, then, or the setting for this is true or false if you're in Sublime Text 3. Here it's got more action inside of it. Make sure that that's turned on. The other thing is that closing a window and quitting Sublime aren't the same thing. So here I have the window that is override audit, and if we create a new window, which is this one, and we open up the project that is, say, the Electron Overlay app, I have both of these here. If I file quit, they go away. When I restart, they come back. If I was to close this window and close this window, now Sublime is stopped. When I restart, I only get one window. And that's because closing windows and closing the application aren't the same thing. If you close the last window and you're on Windows or Linux, that's the same as quitting Sublime, but you're quitting it with only one window open. So when you restore, you only get one window back. And you would need to create a new window and reopen the project inside of it, like so, if you wanted to have two of them. And so in that case, you always want to remember to file quit. Where this can run people into problems is on Mac OS, because closing all of the windows makes the application look like it's terminated, but it's not. It's still running in the dock. It's just running with no windows. And then you click on the dock thinking you're restarting Sublime, but you're not restarting Sublime. You're just getting it to create a new window because it's been running the whole time. So in short, make sure that the hot exit setting is turned on, and make sure you always quit with file quit and not by closing windows. Although, as you've seen, if you use actual projects, you can always recall back any project you had open into its exact state, no matter what, with some very quick actions. And those things that I'm doing here are quick switch project from the project menu. Will open up that panel and allow you to see projects and then immediately swap it into the current window, which makes life very, very handy indeed. You can also use project open recent to grab a particular project into a new window. See that I have two windows now. I'm going to close this one. And stop another time, guy. Or you can choose open project and choose a project that way. But it's usually easier to use the other mechanisms for something like this. Hopefully you find that helpful. Do I have a video on that? I don't, but I probably should. So let's do a little bit of where's my tab? Better do this. I'm blind. Hot exit and ways it sometimes goes wrong, as an example of things. There we go. Added a few more video topics to the pile. Welcome back, Ashwin. We're working on making the override audit. We broke this pretty hardcore. Hang on. Pardon me. I think we need to quit and restart to get that to come back. We're modifying the file browser to be able to show information about the types of files, or the types of packages, rather, that are available over there. So we might say this is kind shipped, and that might be kind ID color bluish with an S. And we would probably want a kind installed. What's another good color here? Purplish, which is an I, and kind unpacked is kind ID color red. Unpacked in packages folder only, for example. I'm using quick panel items for this, yes. Because we want to browse for a particular item, I'm not trying to execute a particular command. So what we're doing here is using a quick panel or a series of nested quick panels to prompt for packages to open, files inside of those packages, browsing around inside of folders, going up and down through the hierarchy. And then when you actively pick something, a callback gets invoked. Which is nicer as a user experience for the user and for the developer than using the list input item. We'll leave those there for the time being. Now the real question is, we want to look for the package info class. Can exist in one or more of these states. We always want it to show shipped if it is a shipped package. We always want it to show installed if it appears to be installed in any way, shape, or form, and only show unpacked if it is only unpacked. So which way? Shipped path, installed path, unpacked path are the items that we're looking for here. We'll just throw that there and go just to make that a little bit nicer. I'll bring those up here. That annotation won't actually be required in a moment. Package kind ship used for package entries when browsing in all quick panel browsers. I totally remember that. Did you ever get that fully working? As defined here, packages show up as shipped or in particular shipped. The indications are for the overall state and not reality. That is, if default is a complete override, it still shows as shipped. Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. We need to fix these as well. And we're going to leave the color there as well. So the theory... Oh, goodness gracious. What's the What's the most Pythonic way to pull the appropriate one of these, depending on the situation that we happen to be in? You go there. We'll switch to coffee. Oh, it's 10 o'clock. Oh, no. The stream should be ending about now, but I want to play around with this just a little bit. And then I need to get me some sleep. Let's see. If we said the kind, let's just actually take a look at what we've come up with here. Package kind shipped. Uh-oh. I think we broke it real good now, guys. One problem with automatic package reloader is it can't automatically reload a package if that particular file was broken. Because then there's no module for it to find and reload. So for that, we need to quit and restart Sublime. Does that resolve the problem? Of course it doesn't. Every time. I'm telling you. Every time. Okay. There's always, they have a blind spot for reddish. Better? Better. All packages appear to be shipped with Sublime Text. Not fully true, but that's okay. I like that blue. That's kind of nice. We could swap this for... oh, actually... What's the S mean? It means it's shipped with Sublime. Cool. Uh-oh. Okay. Now there's an I. It's purple. It is something that is installed as a Sublime package file, which is good. We want to change the... And... Okay. That. Okay. I have an idea. These are the things we care about. We want these to be used everywhere we might do something like this, and we already have information on packages. So if we look for package info, one of the things that we should be able to put in here is a kind operation after we find a place where we can actually put something like this. Say here. Def quick panel kind. Now we can say if self dot shipped path is not none, return package kind shipped. Don't use a semicolon. If self dot installed path is not none, return package kind installed, return package kind unpacked. And then we can call quick panel kind. Let's add a self to that so we don't break stuff too hardcore. And then over here, we don't need any of that business. We don't need any of that business. We can just say package list item. I think that's, oh. We may be up the spout. Quick panel. Simplistically, that is what we want. But what we're looking at here is package list. Does this have a key? Return the de facto package name for the given key. Wait, is this? I'm pretty sure this means if we give, yeah. We have basically a way to look up the information for a package from a list based on its name. I can't imagine I wouldn't have done that. Everything loads okay. So if we open resource, package control loader is indeed an installed package. Those are shipped with Sublime. These are packages that are fully unpacked and nothing else. User is fully unpacked. Terminus is installed. Default shows up as shipped even though I have overrides in it. That is, I believe, exactly the information that we want out of something like this. I think that's pretty handy, all things told. We could conceivably add extra information to this as well, but let's not go too far with that. So here, lists of all the things, blue, purple, and red. Are those like good colors? I managed to make plugin to manage the relative import of classes and functions pretty well in my package somehow. Hey, awesome. Actually, maybe we should take this one step further, huh? Let's do something like this. Let's cut this. Let's go over to here and look at you. And let's copy this line and bring that over here too. You used AST for that. Yeah, I think that's something that multiple people recommended, isn't it? Quick panel item. So what we're going to say is we're going to return. The reason why we're doing it this way is because we have multiple places where we pluck the list of packages and we can easily annotate them later from our package list. So it's easier to do that than to try to modify all of those things in line. And here, Given a list of items and a package list, it can iterate over all of them to get the names of packages and ask it specifically for its quick panel item, which is this. We can say kind is equal to package kind unpacked. And then, oh, we can actually, no. Yeah. For self.name. And we don't need any of that. And we can just say kind is equal to. I thought that line that we plucked out of here. Oh, I guess not. Ugly? Yes. Will it work? Yes. So we do a little bit of that. Well, I mean, will it work? I hope so. All right. That still works. Let's quit and restart to make sure we didn't do anything a little weird. Error problems loading anything? Okay. That is an unrelated problem for which we do not care. Open resource. And we have the list of nice items already in there. Perfect. Now this part could be a little bit smarter. Kind is equal to package kind shipped if self.shipped path is not none. Else package kind installed self.install path is not none. Else package kind unpacked. Don't need a semicolon. And we probably need a little bit of that. Is that not something we can do? Oh. Okay. I think that looks a little bit nicer than this. Cool. Now, I think that's really all we want for that part. This part isn't supposed to be here. We don't need that part. If we look over here, we can actually see what it is that we're doing. So we are currently sitting at stable. Let's create a branch, and we'll call this browser panel enhancements. Here we have inside of the file that knows how to do everything about packages, we have the kind information that represents the 3 different kinds of packages, and packages now have a quick panel item that you can invoke, which will return a quick panel item for that particular package. We could actually, if we wanted to, add annotations to this, like saying if it has overrides or the like, but we'll worry about that later. We now have a single entry point for that, which we can stage, and now we can easily annotate this as well. So we can say that this might be something like update the package browser to use kind information. When browsing for packages or resources inside of them, the quick panel now uses kind information to delineate what kind of package each of the listed packages actually is. Okay. This is done via a new method in the package info class. And just like that, we have one change on the way. Now, what we would also need is a similar sort of item for the other parts of this, which would be the files that are actually being displayed. Needs to have that as well. Maybe we want to have folders have a kind information. Maybe not. Maybe we want to just have kind information on overrides that marks them as an override, which means everything needs to have kind information, but a specific kind only for override. So instead of having that tag on the end of the name, we can do it in a different place instead. But we've gone about 20 minutes over. Had a great time tonight. We're going to continue working on this in the next couple of streams. Either this or the other features that we talked about, while of course also answering your questions as well. And Avitech asks a question here: how to make Sublime Text transparent like you when you move the window. That is a feature of the window manager in my Linux operating system. That's not a feature of Sublime specifically. I just have my operating system set to make windows transparent while they're being moved around. Makes it easier to position them. I'm not sure if you can do that or how you would do that if you were on Mac OS. I don't remember ever seeing anything like that on Windows. I only know how to do it under Linux, unfortunately. And unfortunately, our time has come to a close. But we will be back next Monday right here at the same time. There'll be a video next Monday. And also, I do streams on Wednesdays and Fridays on Twitch at the exact same time at 8 p.m. Pacific, the same time as this live stream happens here. If you follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/odatnerd, you can find my schedule there. You can ask any Sublime Text questions you like there as well. And those streams go for much longer, usually until midnight or 1 a.m. for me, so 4 or 5 hours long. I hope everybody has a fantastic week. Stay safe out there. Have a Sublime day. Remember, if you have any questions about Sublime in the interim, drop those in the Discord in the comment section. Always looking for video ideas. Thanks again to everybody who showed up tonight. We'll see you in the next one. And please, once I configure my hand appropriately to tap the button, I want everybody to please have a Sublime week that never works the way that I want it to.